What's going on, y'all? Bud Elliott here of the Nolecast. I mean, I am on cover 32, but I usually just analyst and don't host. That's our man, Chuck Blunt. Ingram is on assignment tonight. Chuck, nice to do a podcast after a win, man. Previewing a 1-0 team.
Absolutely. It's been a fun buzz throughout the fan base all week.
Yeah, man. The FSU Twitter is back in like peak form. We were around for 2013, 2014. I don't know if it's quite there, but it's they saved up a lot of good tweets, and they are
they've been pulling receipts all week. It's been a very entertaining.
I'm getting pulled on me. I'm like, guys, I took the over on this team. Like, I mean, dude, 8-4 and very likely not going to be good enough here. Got a game this weekend. Mm-hmm. Probably won't do quite as many eyeballs as last week's game, which pulled a 10-6, I think it was, or 10-7. That's
10-7.
Ridiculous. If you're the Big Ten, and again, I work for CBS. This is not on CBS's behalf. This is not on behalf of the Big Ten. This is my conjecture. If you got 3 networks paying for your games, you got to have 3 good games a weekend. Mm-hmm. If you saw that, if you're Michael Alford, if you're the board, you might just take a little copy of that tape. Just check this out a little bit. You may want to see what this kind of environment is right when it's right, and even when a game you didn't expect to win. Mm-hmm. I think, like most fans, I would say they still showed up. They supported. There's any kind of hope you can offer. They are absolutely on it. ACC Network noon, East Texas A&M. I'm going to quiz you here. How familiar are you with East Texas A&M University?
I do know they used to be called Texas A&M Commerce. So they changed that, I believe, 2022. But outside of that, I don't really know anything about them. I believe former Dallas Cowboy Randy White is a famous alum from them. Somebody that was on their like doomsday defense in the 70s. I remember seeing something quickly that he is a famous alum of their football program. But other than that, I don't know anything about them. I know they had a little success against SMU, but outside of that, I don't know much.
Yeah, it is. It's 12,000 enrollment as of fall of 2017, probably a little bigger now. It's just outside of the Metroplex there in Dallas. It was actually formerly known as East Texas Normal College back in 1889 up until 1917, and then East Texas State Normal College because got to differentiate there. From 23 to 57, East Texas State Teachers College, East Texas State College for about 9 years, East Texas State University from 65 to 96, and then Texas A&M University Commerce from 96 to 24. And then, of course, as we know it, East Texas A&M University. This school, what do you think the record is for the amount of name changes? Because we are on 7 names.
That is pretty wild.
You ever heard of a school having 7 names in about 140 years?
No, not at all.
I was unable to find a correspondent for East Texas A&M. I also did not look, but this is all straight from Wikipedia. So if we jack this up, we do have some stats here, which I will pull up. And Chuck, you want to thank our sponsors here. We want to thank the fine folks of the legendary team. Chad does a tremendous job with giving everybody home loans. I've had 3 from Chad now, and does a tremendous job every single time. Guy he's going to bust his butt for you. Talk a little FSU. I don't think anybody happier this week than Chad. 844 FSU loan. 844 FSU loan is the number to call. First responders, military as well. Special deals for you guys. Of course, you want to take care of the people who take care of us. And 844 FSU loan is that number to call. They played SMU last week. They didn't win, but I watched a little bit of this. Break down these stats for the listeners at home who can't see these fine graphics you put together.
So we wanted to look at just some of the key metrics that are available on a place called Game on Paper, which if you like analytics, I would encourage you to go there, especially during games. It's really fun just to get an idea of some of the other non-mainstream statistics that are out there that give you a little more in-depth explanation about the game. One of my favorites is success rate. If you are not watching along, we do have the success rate. So East Texas A&M success rate was only 38%, which based on last year's like the 35th percentile. SMU was 46%, which is in the 71st percentile. So they did make SMU sweat a little. It wasn't, just an easy offensive performance for SMU, which you kind of would expect given what they returned on that offense. The one thing that stood out to me, though, was East Texas A&M did have a 47% success rate rushing the football, which that's the type of numbers Gus has put up throughout his career. So it's just something to keep in mind. They didn't run the ball significantly, though. They did throw the ball about 59% of the times. But when they ran the ball, they did have some success. So that jumped off the page to me when I first looked at it. And then their defense generated roughly the same amount of havoc as SMU's did in the 10% range, which isn't great. It's not an elite number, but it's enough to give you a little something to think about. Their front seven generate about 8% havoc, and for those who aren't familiar with the havoc rate stat, that's tackles for a loss and forced fumbles. It's not just fumbles, because SMU did fumble. You have to actually force the fumble. So given they weren't credited with any forced fumbles, that means you probably had some centers quarterback exchange issues or some handoffs to the running back type of issues. It wasn't actually forced by the defense, but they did generate about 8% havoc, which I think, given it's an FCS team against a Power 4 team, you probably wouldn't expect that. So it's just the offensive line for FSU needs to be prepared. They need to be focused. I think we talked about that post game. If they bring their effort and physicality, we believe is now the standard, they should be fine. But if you don't have that focus, it could be a little squirrely for maybe 20, 25 minutes on Saturday.
That makes sense. I will say this. They run... This is probably all I want to talk about East Texas A&M, to be honest. There are some interesting YouTube shows out there, like Instagram breakdowns, etc., that like to highlight unique plays. East Texas A&M popped a couple times on these against SMU. They do not seem to be saving their bullets for conference play. They seem to really be going after it right now, which is interesting because obviously if you do it and it works, you're going to get noticed. And I guarantee there are some guys who coach at big schools who are like, hey, who's this head coach? Who's this offensive coordinator? Maybe bring him in for a consult this offseason, and shoot, if the guy picks up $30K as a consultant, cool. Maybe he gets hired, right? Mm-hmm. And becomes an OC of somewhere. You see, look at a program like a Western Kentucky that just basically imports an offense, like a QB and a play caller and maybe a couple of receivers from somewhere at the FCS or D2 level, pretty much every single season. So that is to say, you're coming off a huge, huge win. This is very clearly a pseudo preseason game for you. You will probably play a lot of young guys. If you actually have tremendous focus and you're super dialed in on East Texas A&M, I would be surprised. And I honestly don't think I'd be mad if they're not, okay? You need them seriously focused for about 8 or 9 games this year, because I don't think you're so damn good yet that you can just write off every ACC ball game as an automatic dub, or at least you shouldn't. The last couple of years, obviously 2023 accepted, so you probably need to actually stay focused on these, right? Mm-hmm. Don't get mad if they pop a play or two, an explosive on some just kind of craziness that you've never seen before. They're lining up 2 quarterbacks in formation. They're running double jet reverse, just wacky double pass stuff. Guys, if they do against you what they did against SMU, you'll see some of that stuff. They probably have some other variations of it. I don't know. That's just variance city. Do they hit them? Do they not? Do you bite on the fake? Do you not? Do you even know what fake you're looking for? Honestly, I would be repping a lot of duo in practice right now. That's Miami's base run play. Okay, you saw it. That's a pretty good Notre Dame front. They're able to run it pretty well. What's the spread? There's no spread on this game yet, at least not that we can see, right?
No, but it's probably going to be in that 48 to 50 range. East Texas A&M is in the 100s for SP Plus FCS rankings, and they're about 285 in his entire 767 ranking. So they're not even an upper or even a mid-tier FCS school. Just a call back. I don't know if you remember, but when FSU beat Miami in 2005, the following week they played Citadel. That game was 10-10 in the second quarter, and fans were freaking out. It's going to be hard to have focus coming off the Bama game. They don't want to screw around too long, but don't be shocked if this game is 17-6 in the second quarter. Like, it's very possible they're just not going to be crisp this week. And I don't want people to freak out. It happens to every team. They're going to still probably win by 4 or 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And based on what Gus typically does to an FCS team, we should probably have confidence the offense will have success throughout the entire or over the course of the entire game. Maybe not initially, but it should have success across 60 minutes.
I will pull that up. I'll pull that up now as well on our share screen. Let's get a. There we go. There we go. Share screen. Let's get that one right here for you. If you're watching at home, I'm now sharing the Gus against FCS teams here. Let me pull our Nolecast logo back. All right, so you've got a lot of data here dating back all the way to 2013. Gus is the dude who likes to pad his stats hard, dude. And I'm not saying anything wrong with that. I'm just saying, look, some of these offensive coordinators, especially these tempo guys, which Gus clearly is, they very much care about being top 10 in offense and total yardage and top 10 in points and whatnot. And you see a lot of big numbers here too. They do not dial it back, at least not when he's head coach.
He's actually put up 80 plus plays in 5 of the last 7 games he's had against FCS teams. So it sure would seem he's going to push tempo as much as possible. They put up over 600 yards in all 4 games that he played FCS teams while he was at UCF. And the average is 7.3 yards per play in 11 total games against FCS opponents since 2013. So anything over 7 is elite offensive production. Now, granted, it's against an FCS team, but that's a benchmark. If you're over 7, your offense is doing some crazy things. So, yeah, I would expect him to have a very base game plan, but also given the bodies that they have at FSU versus this opponent, it should be more than enough to, if they get 13 possessions, probably score 52 to 55 points and maybe even push 60 if they don't have any mental lapses. That's one thing I would call out, is we did see in the data. Now, turnovers can be luck, but they also can be a sign of lack of focus. Mm-hmm. And his offenses across the 11 games have averaged 1.6 turnovers per game. It was a lot worse at Auburn. It was over 2 per game while he was at Auburn. It was just under 1 while he was at UCF. So that can be a sign of just a lack of focus, given we're huge favorites. We don't really take this team totally seriously, so it wouldn't be shocking.
You could even throw in the Kent State game in 2023, in which they had, I think, a fumble they recovered, which led to a punt, and 2 more interceptions, and they still won by 50 plus. And Kent State, who you play next week, was inarguably that year the worst FBS team in the country, and worse than a couple teams on this list, in my opinion. Certainly, they were worse than the Jacksonville State team in 2015. It was actually a pretty good squad. Yeah. Okay. My question here then is, does Mike actually allow Gus to go absolute psycho tempo the entire game?
Maybe not the entire game, but I think this is an extended fall camp for them. So given we know they didn't have the entire offense together for much of the spring, I don't know how much tempo they actually got to rep throughout the spring and into fall camp. And you question how much they really wanted to go fast against Alabama, because it was going to be very situational determination. So this might be an opportunity to actually put that to a test. So I don't think I'd be shocked if they run 75, almost 80 plays this week in an effort just to see what you have and how they produce at that type of pace.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you on that. I am curious to see. Let's get into this. How much Kevin Sperry do you think you see?
I would expect, if things go the way they should, Tommy is probably out at halftime or after the first drive of the third quarter. So if you're guessing they're going to get 13 to 15 possessions in the game, I don't think it'd be crazy to suggest Sperry gets to run 5 or 6 of those drives.
I think that's fair. Yeah. I obviously, I don't know. I'm not going to say don't run Tommy at all, because it's just kind of what he is and what this offense is. But at the same time, I maybe you can design some safer stuff where it's hey, if it's there, pull it. If not, just hand it off.
I would also give Tommy a lot of credit. He he plays with some reckless abandon, but he also was pretty smart in not taking the big shot against Alabama. He got down or he got out of bounds. One time he got out of bounds and he picked up a 15-yard late hit off of the Alabama defense. Like, he did a good job to try to avoid those big shots that are going to put a scare in the fan base, I think.
I agree with you on that for sure. I mean, I thought he played like his comfort level in that offense was tremendous. I know. Look, I know the narrative is like, hey, Alabama screwed this up and they screwed that. And they certainly did in some regards. But also, you created some of that indecision. You created some of that quote unquote softness because they were just not sure what they were looking at. Because you did a great job with some of your ball fakes. You know, like guys are on their heels, and it looks like they're not playing hard, not playing downhill. You know, they're not playing downhill because they're not really sure which way is downhill.
Yep.
That was super impressive to me. I want to see how many young guys they get in this game. I want to see Amari. I want to see some of the young tight ends. Obviously, Pittman's out for a couple of weeks. You know, thoughts and prayers. Obviously, take your time. Just get back for the Virginia game, which is basically like a month from now because you got 2 games and a bye week. So, I want to see some of these young offensive linemen, right? Like, how ready are they to come and execute this scheme and to get those dudes in? You're going to need to pull the starters somewhat early. I am curious about that, by the way. Like, how many coaches, and I've not talked to Mike about this, so I'm not like insider infoing this. I have talked to other coaches though who really took note of what Ryan Day did last year, as far as not only the tempo, but some of the load management stuff, some of the way they got guys out pretty early in some of these games in which they knew they were going to get a comfortable win in. Ended up paying off pretty well. They had a pretty nice run once they got to the playoffs and then took home the national title. Like, how soon do you get some of these guys out? Like how much is Mike watching that? And I'm not saying he needs to. I would kind of prefer he does against some of these teams, but it makes it hard to project this from a stats standpoint because you don't know, like in your model, how long do you keep the ones in?
I'd also be curious to see if he starts to work some of those second guys in even before it's in hand. You don't pull the entire unit, but you maybe slide in Lucas Simmons at left tackle on the second or third drive once you're up 10 or 14 points and get him some reps before the game is completely over and not in doubt any longer, because that's beneficial to a young guy to be in there when he needs to execute to push the lead or get it to where it's a comfortable situation for the entire team. So that would be something to keep an eye on. How many guys do they rotate in early? That's become a thing across college football, is to rely on 6 or 7 or even 8 offensive linemen and rotate them earlier in games and not just wait until the game is 54-0.
I love the idea of kind of doing the fire drill thing. It's like, oh, Lucas, go shoot. Like, hey, what's his name is out for this play. Blah blah blah. You could even plan it, right? If you wanted to, just to make sure he's ready to go in. If you're a backup, like it's not always that you're scheduled to go in, right? All right. So I have them scoring somewhere between 42 and 70 points. I know it's a wide range. Just I think you almost have to, because we don't know how long they're going to keep starters in. You don't know like what the focus level is going to be coming off that Bama win. And I've used Texas A&M scoring somewhere between 0 points and 17 points.
Totally fair.
So 58-10.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in the 55-13 or 55-10 range. I think they'll get, like you said, they run some trickeration. They might bust one for a touchdown, and then we don't know the focus. And since we called out the turnovers, maybe they do something a little silly in their own territory that sets up a short field, but the defense, bows up and holds them to a field goal. So it wouldn't shock me if East Texas A&M comes away with about 10 points.
I think that is completely fair. You just got to see how much they can optimize this team and this offense, continue to get better. Of course, our friends at Congruity can help you do that with your business. Congruity HR solutions, whether that is payroll, staffing, insurance, whatever you need. Let them take a look at your business. More than 10 Nolecast related businesses have. I know Graham sent them a bunch of business on his own, and they are a great partner for us. So make sure you check out Congruity HR Solutions. All the details there, of course, in the show notes. Congruity HR at congruity.com. All right, so let's go ahead and look. I know we're all going to be glued to this Florida State against East Texas A&M game, noon on ACC Network, as it does. Tremendous ratings, of course, but there is kind of a down ballot slate this weekend, and we'll go ahead and take a look at this here. If I can share my screen here, let's go ahead. Not an invite to other people. Let's go ahead and take this. Yeah. All right. Can everybody see this? I think so.
I got you.
Now, Chuck, I've always thought you've done a great job with this. This is your basically watch guide for the weekend, and I like this because it's an FSU related watch guide. Like you only put games on here that are like legitimately either entertaining or why am I explaining it? It's your chart. You explain it to the people back home.
So we tried to look at games specifically that involve opponents of FSU. So you have NC State, you have Virginia, you have Florida and Miami, obviously Virginia Tech, Stanford, but also we wanted to look at any teams that are fringe CFP contenders. So somebody like an Ole Miss, we know that the Big Ten last year got 4 teams. So we wanted to look at some of those middle of the pack Big Ten teams. So I threw the Iowa State game. That's always a crazy game anyway. So it's something that if you want something to watch, it tends to be a fun game, and it tends to have some goofiness happen in it. So there's a high entertainment value, but it would also be beneficial to have some of those Big Ten teams take some early out of conference losses so that they aren't in the way of FSU should FSU need an at-large bid when we get to December. So that was kind of the thinking when looking at some of these games is who do we need to get out of the way so that if an 11-1 FSU gets to Charlotte and much like SMU last year gets beat, you want to still have an opportunity that gives you a good chance to get one of those at-large bids that are available for the CFP. So that was kind of the thinking on these. I know it's hard for people to swallow rooting for Florida or rooting for Miami, but it's not always bad for your resume to have some of the teams on it actually be good.
You don't need Florida to cover. Just don't lose to USF. I think if you want that additional chance at a marquee win, or if you want the grace to be given you by the committee, if that game was one that doesn't go your way. If you're losing to a Florida team that loses to USF, you will not probably get a whole lot of grace from the committee. If you beat that Florida team that loses to USF, they probably write it off. It's like, oh, it's SEC, but it's not, not prime SEC. That's still damn hard, man. That's still difficult to root for the Gators. Or I know logically, yeah, you kind of need to. But
I think moving forward, we won't call this FSU rooting interest as much as good for the resume.
FSU playoff interest.
Yes. Right. What is best outcome for that?
How freaking cool is it that we're talking about the ability to sit at Madison Social or Township, longtime sponsors of ours, tremendous institutions there in Tallahassee, which obviously, I mean, whether you're going into the game or just hanging out at Mad, so if you go to Tally this weekend, weather looks kind of decent actually, so I'm pretty excited about that. Chilling at the bar, there's a lot of decent games on. You need to be able to tell the bartender, who to watch or whether at your table. How cool is it that you can watch these games with a freaking FSU playoff rooting interest? That feels good to say, man. Like I really like doing this show. Last year sucked. Like, for sure. I was like, okay.
You were a trooper.
I'm like, dude, they've quit. I don't know how many times I can say, like, they've quit in various ways. This is cool, though. So, you don't play SMU.
No.
I want to pick your brain on a couple of these, though. Obviously, Louisville, you may play Louisville in the conference championship game. It'd be better if the ACC had 5 or 6 teams that are actually respected by the committee. If you're losing to James Madison on an island game on national TV, that's not a great way for the league to get respect. That's a pretty good JMU team, by the way. They return like everybody. Baylor SMU, I actually think is pretty interesting. Like just to watch, that should be good if you got 2 screens. Good luck finding the CW though on your TV if you.
I actually have that game power rated a lot more in favor of SMU. I'll just call it out. I was a little surprised by the 2.5 point line that's out there. I had it closer to a little over a touchdown, more like
interesting
7.5, 8 points. I think is what my power rankings have. Now it takes multiple weeks of data to get these things more calibrated to where they should be. So I thought SMU was a much better team going into this year than Baylor was, and I think Baylor might just be getting a little more credit for staying close with Auburn than whether or not they're actually a good team. We need to see if Dave Aranda's team is going to quit on him because he's definitely on a hot seat at this point.
That makes total sense to me. I don't think they're going to quit on him, but I guess in theory, they could. You saw Syracuse is less than a touchdown favorite against UConn. Like, that's another one. You could really use Cuse making a bowl for the league. Like, it'd be helpful just to have that. I know you don't play them, but these things do kind of add up, right?
Yeah, perception is reality.
Yeah.
It just is.
Iowa State. Why Iowa State here?
Because we want to. Iowa is considered a fringe. I think you even called out on cover 3. The Big Ten has 9 teams roughly that could make a run towards a playoff run. So the earlier we can get some of these teams out of the way, the better. So that's why I would say we know that the Big 12 is not likely to get 2 bids. So an Iowa State team winning now, the odds are they're going to win or lose 2 or 3 Big 12 games across the entire course of the season. And only one team is probably going to come out of that conference when it's all said and done. So it would be much better at this point to just knock Iowa out of the way and let Iowa State take their losses when conference play comes.
Makes sense to me. Okay. Illinois Duke's very obvious. Illinois is also in that spot of a potential playoff contender. That'd be a good game. I kind of like this noon. If you really like college football, this noon slate is fun. All right. UVA, NC State. Sell me on why you have NC State here. I'm curious.
I think you're likely to get Virginia's not going to be ranked by the time FSU plays them in 3 weeks. But if NC State is competent, it could be one of those Dave Doran teams that is 7-4 or 8-3 as we get into November. Or actually, they would be at 10 games, but you kind of get the point. They could be 7-3, maybe even 8-2, and that could potentially give you another quality opponent on the schedule down the stretch in November when it really matters. That's when the voters or the committee seems to pay more attention. And if you're playing an 8-2 or 7-3 NC State and Raleigh on a Friday night in November, that's better for the resume than it is playing a Virginia team who's 3-0 in September. Because Virginia may still face plant before the year's over and might not make a bowl. We know they have a lot of injuries on the offensive line. That's going to be hard to navigate that schedule with those concerns.
That makes okay. I can buy that. I was thinking hey, if they're 4-0, maybe they're fringe top 25, but the committee doesn't release rankings until week 7 anyway, right? So or somewhere around there. All right, Kansas, Missouri. Yeah, totally agree. You want to get Missouri out of the paint as one of these extreme fringe.
They're the same as Iowa.
Yeah, exactly. Ole Miss, Kentucky. Yes, I would laugh my ass off if this Kentucky team beats Ole Miss. But
Lane would never do that, would he?
No, never. You saw his average margin of victory over Kentucky the last 4 matchups is 2.
Yes. That was a fun stat.
Yeah.
And for the record, I do like Lane, so this is kind of going against my preferences.
He's fun. He's, but I also like Mark. Mark's always been, never had a bad experience with him. USF at Florida. Yeah, USF's got some dudes. We talked about this on the last pod. Well, the pod from a couple weeks ago. They do have some dudes. I'm curious to see. Florida gave up a lot of pressures on Lagway in that game. I don't know exactly what that was all about. USF has a couple guys who can rush the passer. We'll see. I also don't think the rest of the USF's defense is worth a damn. So you'll kind of have to monitor that. I'm glad you put Cal in here because this kid is fun. Yeah, and I'm glad you don't play him.
That's just an entertainment value. It has nothing to do with the FSU in general, but sometimes it's just fun to see what's out there across college football.
If you guys have not seen Jaron Kuesagapatele, some of these throws he's making are insane. Mm-hmm. So I'm very into watching him for sure. Glad you don't play it. That's a game that no matter how bad the rest of Cal is, if you had to go play a 10 o'clock Pacific time game against him, it starts at 1 o'clock on the East Coast. Damn it. There's voodoo possibilities in the air. All right, Bethune at Miami. Yeah, I mean, if you don't need Miami losing to Bethune, that would be hilarious, though.
Yes.
Let me see. Oh, BC at Michigan State. You don't play BC this year, but obviously, yeah, it helps knock out some of the Big Ten mystique as you're competing for these playoff spots.
Plus, that's just a boost to the ACC's resume. If the ACC can go win another out-of-conference game against a P4 team, even if Michigan State's just 6-6 this year, it's still another feather in the cap. We've seen too many times the ACC makes themselves look bad by losing these type of games that they actually have a legitimate chance to win.
That makes sense. All right. Vandy, Virginia Tech. Yeah, clearly Va Tech. You don't need them losing to Vanderbilt again, although I'm not really sure that maybe the Hokies are a better team. Their defense looked pretty good against South Carolina, but the offense still very much I was talking to Jeff Cameron this morning, and I was like, drones to me is still just kind of theoretical and not actual. And that's kind of an issue in year 4 of drones. But
yes.
All right, sell me on why we should be rooting for Oklahoma over Michigan to help FSU's playoff chances.
So once again, this is a similar concept. We want to get Michigan is considered probably the 4th or 5th best Big Ten team. If they win this game, their schedule is really easy until they get to Ohio State at the end of the year. And we also know they have Ryan Day's number. So if the more losses you can get Michigan to take early in the season as Underwood's getting his feet under him, probably the better. Meanwhile, Oklahoma has arguably the hardest schedule in the country. So even if Oklahoma wins this game, there's still a high probability this team loses 4 games before the year's all said and done and is out of playoff contention. So if we're just looking for what is the best path for FSU to improve their odds to, if they need that at-large bid, I think you'd want to get Michigan to take losses early and often, just so they're not somebody you're competing with potentially in December for one of those last bids to get into the field.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. And then obviously Stanford. Did you see how Cannell picked BYU today?
Yeah,
that was great. So if you guys have not watched, he's like, yeah, I saw Frank Reich was talking about the quarterback position and how they were going to address that by running the exact same kid out there. Give me BYU. It was some classic Corso, and obviously, congrats to Lee on his retirement. That was, disappointing not to see him in Tallahassee, but still, like, what an incredible career, and just, yeah, man, that was awesome. But any kind of feelings y'all may have about game day, I thought they did that. They did that up right for him.
I thought it was nice too. OSU gave him a ceremonial Brutus head, given that it was his very first pick he ever made with a headgear and his very last pick. So they did give him that in a Letterman jacket from OSU, because he's basically an honorary Buckeye at this point, given how many times they've gone to Columbus and how many times he's picked OSU to win football games.
You saw that his picks went 6-0.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool, man. Like what a way to go out.
It's the perfect way to go. Yeah.
Any other young guys you're looking forward to, like, making their debuts, or maybe young guys who got in some you want to see play more this week?
I would really like to see Landon Thomas get involved in this offense. Yeah. I think it would be very helpful. I mean, we don't like seeing Pittman down with an injury, but this is a great opportunity for Thomas to force his way in and make him an integral part of this offense as we move forward throughout the season. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him. Obviously, Chroma, I think everybody wants to see him get 20 carries and just Greg Jones somebody, make him look like Mr. Potato Head. And then on defense, I always like these games. I like the opportunity to see the kids that are going to play in 26 or 27, because you may not get to see them much the rest of the season. So just some of those guys on the defensive line, continuing to see the Desir twins, who look like they're going to get to play a lot regardless of the opponent.
Yeah, man.
But I'm looking forward to seeing them and just seeing continued growth from all the guys, because they're so new. They're still learning to play together. They played one game, and for a lot of these guys, they played one game as a unit. So it'll just be fun to see them continue to grow, and who continues to step up and improve that maybe we didn't expect before the year started.
I want to see more out of some of the young corners, if possible. Like just to kind of see what you have there. East Texas A&M will be throwing the ball a lot, probably in the second half, so you get a lot of coverage snaps. That'll certainly be good to see. I want to see, like, more snaps from Ashton Barker.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he looked strong, dude. That was encouraging.
Very physical,
no doubt. Cool. That's about 30 minutes. That's probably about what we need to do on East Texas A&M. So enjoyed it. We'll be here. Let's not take the word instant reaction literally. It'll be sometime in the afternoon reaction. Certainly, like, it won't be a Sunday morning, but I don't know if we're going to do it like right at the gun. But Yeah. We also will not be doing it like before the game ends, like we've done before, just out of total disgust. So awesome, buddy. Enjoyed it.
All right.